Okay, this is ITS148, and today is October 1st, and we're in Chapter 7, and I'm gonna go over the Chapter 7 slides, and let's see. I didn't make a recording last time for the last part of Chapter 6 because there was a problem with the computers in the classroom here. So I'm going to real quickly show you that last problem 6 that I didn't really get to. So let me share my screen here. And I'm going to put this down here. And let me go to 148. And let me see if I can log into Visual Studio. I should be able to now. Here we go. This should work, I hope. All right. So that worked. Let's see. The assignment is the assignment that we didn't do. I'm just going to do it real quick because it's pretty easy. Go to assignments. It was this one here. And basically, you just take your assignment 7 and you move the if statement into its own private method. Chapter 6 is learning how to make how to modularize your code into modules, making it easier to follow and to code and to debug and to document. And if you have to come back 6 months later and try to figure out what you did, it's nice to have a bunch of smaller methods than it is having one big huge block of code. So so I'm going to start with my assignment 7. Let me go back to assignment 7 back here. And I think I submitted something. Did I submit something here? Yes, I did. This tax calculator zip. So I'm going to download that, and I'm going to put it on my desktop. And here it is. I'm going to right-click, extract all. So here it is. So I'm going to open that up and open this up. And Visual Studio 2019. And here we are. So what happens if I run this? You see this pops up, and if I put in 35350, I calculate a tax owed of that. Okay, exit. All we need to do is if we look inside this code here, let me double click on the form1.cs and right click and view the code. We see that this if statement here and the idea is that we put this inside its own method. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do that real quick. Let's see, I'm going to include. All right, I'm just going to take the if statement like that, just the if statement, and I'm going to right click and do quick actions and refactorings. And then I'm going to go here and it says extract method. And so here's what it does. That looks pretty good. Let's preview the changes. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new method called new method, and we'll be able to name that. And it's going to put all that if statement inside of this method. So I'm going to say apply, and that should ask me to rename it. And I'm going to name it compute tax. I wonder if I was supposed to name it something special. Let me look here. No, it doesn't tell me. It doesn't say what I should name it, so that's fine. All right, so I'm just going to name it compute tax, and then click apply. And here we go. So now my button calculate is just this little bitty code here where it, you grab out the income that the person entered. You set the tax equal to 0. You don't even need to really do that. But then you call this compute tax method, and an input to the compute tax method is the input, and the output is the tax. We don't really need, we can fix this up a little bit. We can actually, it doesn't look like we need to have this. So I'm going to take this out. And I'm gonna take this out. And let me, okay, now this ends up being like that. I'm gonna take this. Now I'm just gonna take this. I'm just gonna copy this and put it right in here. So, okay, so now this tax variable is different than this tax variable. Why? Because of scoping. This tax variable here is just a tax variable inside this method, inside this private method, and when it returns the value. So we could in fact name this something else. See, I can rename this to well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, let's see if this works. 35350, compute, calculate tax, and it seems to work. All right, very good. So then what I would do is let's look at the rubric. Calculation is in a private method, and everything else should be the same. Because of if I got it right in chapter for assignment 7. All right, so then what I do is I go back here, I save all, and I close, I exit. And then I go here, I'm gonna throw this away. That's the zipped one. Here's the one I just fiddled with. I'm gonna zip that back up again. Send to compressed zip. There it is. And I'm gonna go back to my here, and I'm gonna submit it. Be this one. I just zip that up. And the other thing I want to do is I should have grabbed out. Let me open this back up again, and open this back up again. Open this. Actually, I'm just going to go to this code here. Open this up in something else, and I'm supposed to include the form1.cs code, the whole thing. So let me just. It's this whole one, form1.cs. So I'm asking for this whole thing. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing. a second. Control A, Control C, and paste it right here. Paste. And if I want, I can select all this, make it some other kind of font, like formatted or something. All right, and then I can just submit this, and there it is. Very good. Okay, so I've done I've done this assignment. I've done this assignment 9 here. Now, assignment 10 is going to be exercise 7-1. I haven't put it up here yet, but if we look at the resources and we look at exercises, 7-1 is the same. It's the same program, except for oh no, not that one. It's this one. And oh yeah, okay, it's this one. It's to create a simple calculator like we did before, except for we're gonna well, oops, never mind. 7-1. Here we go. So in this, so we're going to take I guess we're going to open a simple calculator project that that was there from before. Let's see if, did I include that? Chapter 7. Okay, yeah, I guess I did. Okay, so it's this one here we're going to work on. Trouble is I need to, okay, so I'm going to go back. Can I like, I can't zip this, can I? Exception handling. Let's see, I can do this. Here, it's in here, exercises zip. The other thing I can do is I can do this. Let me open up a different browser. Chrome. And I'm going to open up my La Lima and go into my and I'm going to go to 148 and I'm going to go to assignments, resources, exercises, chapter 7, and let me zip this. Compress to zip archive. Do both of them. That's the data validation one, and this is the exception handling one. Okay, so I think it's the exception handling one we're going to do first. So I'm done with that. Now let's go back here and go into chapter 7, and ooh, there it is, exception handling. So I'm going to download this, and I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to open it. So I'm done with this. Going to close this, get over here, close this. Let me, this one, right click and extract all. And let's open it up. And let's open up form1.cs. There's the calculator, view the code, and it looks like this. And we're supposed to add exception handling. So exception handling is what happens if the user types in something that is unexpected. So so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to download the slides and go through the slides. So let me go back to resources and download the PowerPoint slides, and this time I'm going to download chapter 7, and I'm going to save it down here. I just noticed, I wonder if, oh, they're all right here. I could have grabbed it here. Okay, anyway. All right, so let me go to the slides and open up chapter 7. And I'm going to go as far as I need to go to cover exception handling, which is about throws, exceptions, rethrows, exceptions, exception handling, exception handling, exception handling. All right, here's range. This is exception handling. Okay, now, okay, so here we start getting into validation. Okay, so exception handling and validation are they are related, but with exception handling, you set it up so the C# runtime engine, as they say, catches errors. Whereas data validation, you write program code that monitors what the user types in, and you basically write code to catch errors before the system itself catches the errors. And so it's usually, if you do data validation, your information back to the user can be more informed. So anyway, let's go through these exception handling, and this is something that's different. You're used to programming, you know, if you learn how to program back in the 20th century, before they had object-oriented programming, then you probably are not that familiar with TryCatch and being able to catch exceptions when they happen. That's something that they added with Java and C# and those kinds of languages, but we never had them in Pascal or Algol or any of those other older languages. All right, so in this chapter, our objectives are given a form that uses text boxes that accepts data from the user, we're going to write code that catches exceptions that can occur. And we're also going to write code that will accept the data and do validation on the data. So those are two different ways to accomplish the same thing. And then we're also going to get better at using dialog boxes. We're using dialog boxes now, but we're going to, this is actually the chapter where they're introduced, I think. Anyway, then as far as our knowledge objectives, we're going to be able to explain what an exception is and what it means for an exception to be thrown. What does that mean? You throw an exception. There's an exception hierarchy, and you're going to be able to describe TryCatch statements. You're going to be able to describe the properties and methods of an exception object. When you throw an exception, there's an exception object is created. It's got properties and methods. How to throw exceptions. Your program can throw them manually for testing, and then also doing validation, data validation, and how you can create some generic validation methods that you can use in all your programs. So, an unhandled exception is more or less what we have now with a simple calculator, and that is, if we run this thing, and we enter something like Joe Blow, $ Fred, calculate, we get it's an error. It causes the program crashes. There's an exception, and an exception was thrown. And in this case, it tried to convert the first operand. It tried to convert the first operand into a decimal number, and the problem is what I had typed in could not convert to a decimal number. Remember, I typed in Joe Blow. So the exception is input string was not in a correct format. So so that's what happens. Let me exit this. All right, how do I get out of here? Back to here, and let me close. Turn this. Okay. Let's see. Turning it off. I want to turn it off. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's what we saw here. We saw a format exception. The format exception was unhandled. Okay. So here is what they call an exception hierarchy. There are exceptions, and there's two different kinds of exceptions that we're going to be talking about: formatting exceptions, and then arithmetic exceptions or arithmetic exceptions. And a format exception is like you're supposed to type in a number and you type in a letter or something like that. So, an arithmetic or an arithmetic exception is if you're doing a calculation and the solution ends up, or like you're multiplying two numbers and the result is too big for the data type or the variable type that you've declared. Like, let's say you just declare a regular integer and you do some calculation, and the result will end up, and the result requires more than 32 bits to store the result. That would cause an overflow. So that's one kind of exception. And another kind of exception that we all know about is dividing by 0, where that causes a similar kind of overflow, because if you divide by an increasingly small number, the resulting quotient gets bigger and bigger, and if it ends up dividing by 0, the quotient ends up being infinity, and of course that's an error, and that would cause an exception. So here are some methods that might throw exceptions. The convert methods. We're converting from a string to a decimal. It can cause a format exception, or it can cause an overflow exception. Same with converting to an integer. Parsing a string into a decimal number. Parsing a string into a date time can cause a formatting error. It's not going to cause any kind of overflow exception. It'll caused an error where you ended up entering something in that doesn't look like a date or a time. Here, we've been using dialog boxes for a while, but this is so this should be just review, where if we want to display out an error box or a dialog box, there's this title right up here at the top where it says entry error. There's that, and then there's the actual message here. See, so let me switch to. All right. There's the part where we. How do I write? And how do I write? Oh, it did write. Okay, good. There's this up here, and when we write, when we code it, there's two parameters. They're both strings. This is one string, comma, another string. The first string of the message box is this big message here. It can be as big as you want. And the second string is the title of the message box. So this is the format for a TryCatch. And so this is how you would do it. With one TryCatch, you can, you can have a bunch of code in here. And so all this code, if any exception, if any code in here causes an exception, then this TryCatch thing is going to catch it. And if there is an exception, then it jumps out to this code here. So for example, right here, if we try to convert something that they typed in, and it ends up not being able to be converted to a decimal, then that throws an error. It throws an exception. And so what happens is it jumps right down to this catch part. And this catch part will then execute. And what this catch part is going to do is it's just going to say, it's going to just display out a message box saying, please enter a valid number. And the title of the message box is going to say entry error. So your program won't bomb. It'll just stop here and not execute any of this. Instead, it'll execute this, and then it'll continue on. So the syntax is you have a try section with a bunch of statements, and you have a catch section with a bunch of statements. The only time the catch statements are executed is if there's an exception that's thrown up here in the try statements. So you can have something like this, a dialog box that's displayed for an exception. Type in XX, should be typing in a number, but you type in some letters, and then this thing pops up. The syntax for you can be specific about the particular exceptions that you want for a particular catch, a set of catch statements. So here, it looks like this, where you still have your try statements, and then you can have one or more catch sections, and inside the parentheses of the catch section, you can name the exception. And this exception name is going to be, of a particular type. The type name is exception class, so it's it's an object and so on. And so you can have a different set of statements for each different kind of exception. An exception object like this is going to have at least two properties. It's going to have a message property, which is going to display, which is going to contain a brief description of the exception, and then it's going to have this stack trace, which is going to, it's a string which lists all the methods that were called before the exception occurred. So you'll kind of see how that works. And then for all exceptions, there's a method which you can call, and that'll return the type of exception that occurred. So, for example, here, this is the TryCatch statement that actually accesses the exception object that is returned. Why? Because you may want to grab out the type of exception it was, and then you might want to locate exactly where it occurred, and so you type out you output the stack trace, and you can see all the methods that were called all the way down to where the exception occurred. So here's an example. So here the first thing we do is we type out the error message, and then we do a couple of line feeds, blank line, and then we output the type of exception it is. So this is the method in this exception object. It's an exception object called EX. So EX.message is the message, EX.getType is the type, and then you do a toString so you can just display it out. And then EX.stackTrace is going to contain the stack trace. And so, so this is the message. This here this looks like the type of exception. It's a format exception. And this is the stack trace. It's kind of let's see. So it was down where we're converting a string to a number someplace. We're doing a parse decimal. Oh no, it's here. We're converting to decimal, and that was inside this button calculate click event handler. And at the very top where it's at the form1.cs line 23. So if we go back to the program, do we have a picture of the program here? I guess not. Here's a fancier TryCatch where we have you know, several catches depending on what the error might be. And then the way there's also this finally section where first it executes the try, and if there's an exception, then one or more of these catches will execute. And then when it's all done, the finally will execute. The finally will execute regardless of whether there's an exception or not. But it always does execute. All right, so let me go back to our program here. So here's our program, and so I'm going to put all this stuff here into a TryCatch right here. So let me make this bigger. So right now, so right now if I type in XX, I just hit calculate. Yeah. Okay. So this is 22. So it says not in the right format. By the way, this is okay. So let me just close this. Let me. How do I stop this? All right. So let's put all this into a. It's right here. So let's put this inside of a try. So I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go like this. I'm gonna say try that. Enter. Close that. Catch. Enter that, and then I'm going to take this, all this here, and put this inside of the try. And for an error here, I'm going to put message box show please type numbers quote, and then up at the top I'm going to say error message. Oops. Okay, so now when I run this and I type XXX, calculate, it says error message, please type numbers. Okay, great. All right, so so that wasn't very helpful. Let's try to get more information about the exception. So let's so I'm going to put this in there. I'm going to say exception and exception type, and I'm going to call it EX. So this is just a variable name. It can be VAR. Okay, how about that? No, I cannot. I don't think it can use var. I'm going to VARX. Okay, that's the variable name. And then, so then I can say instead of the message box, I can do what the PowerPoint said, which was this here. ex.message. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to message box. I'm going to first let's just do it that way. For this, I'm going to say var x, because that's the name of the variable, message. So that's going to be the message that displays out. And then the title is going to be var ex dot get type. So it'll display up the type of the message up at the top there. I got to do a toString. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So XX, what does it say? Oh, it says format exception. That's the type of error it was. And then this is the message that it displayed out. Okay, let me try this. 50 divided by 0. See what this says. Divide by 0 exception. Attempted to divide by 0. Okay, I want to also display out the stack. So I don't want to. I don't want to. This is stack trace. That's what it's called, stack trace. Okay, so I'm gonna append plus quote, put some line feeds in there, plus VAREX.stackTrace. It's just a variable, just a property. So it's going to also display out this stack trace. So now let's run this, and I'm going to type 50 divided by 0. Calculate, and so the type is a divide by 0 exception, and this is the message. This is the message here. It's attempted to divide by 0, and then this is the stack trace, and we have line 27. Line 27 right here, it says, and that would be right here. So this is it was in the calculation that it occurred. It was inside this calculate method. The calculate method is right here. So what's line 50? Line 50 is right here, see? Line 50, it's this thing. This thing is where the error occurred. That's where I divide by 0. Line 50, it says line 50 right there. So it's in this it was called at this calculate, that's this thing. So here it says, you know, where. So there was a call to divide the 2 decimals. Calculate operand 1, operand 2, operator. Okay. Anyway, so that's so that is the stack. So you can see if you have a big huge program and your program's not running, you can throw in these TryCatches, and you can and display out the stack, and you can trace down to exactly where the error is actually occurring. All right, so now there's different kinds of exceptions. Let's and so here we can put this basically catches all exceptions, but before that we can catch we can be more specific about the exceptions that we're catching. So here we could put a catch, and let's catch the format exception right here first, and the message can be invalid numeric format. Please check all entries, or some such thing. And the error can be entry error. Okay, so that's what happens if we get a format error. We can get an overflow error, catch. And I'll try to simulate that. Overflow exception. And that can be message box show overflow error. Please use smaller values. And the error up at the top can be overflow error. Okay, so that's another kind of exception we can catch. Oh, let's try to catch that divide by zero error. Catch divide by zero exception. And this one can be message box dot show divide by zero error. Please enter a non-zero value for operand 2. Okay. And then so here, you know, it's like we think we've caught them all, but it's possible that we didn't. So that's why we, in the end, we just have this generic thing which catches anything. So what's going to happen is if there's an error, it'll first see if this is it's only going to be caught by one of these, and then after that, it's going to, you know, be done. You can have a finally. This is dumb, but all right. So if we run this now, oh, there was build errors. Ooh, expected a semicolon on line 34 here. Okay, so if I do XX divided by 50, I get entry error. Enter a numeric, invalid numeric format. Please check out. Okay. So well, another chance, please. Okay. So how about if I go 9999999999999 times 999999999. Calculate. Overflow error. Overflow error. Please use smaller values. Okay. You want me to use smaller values? Here's a smaller value. 0. What do you have to say to that? Oh, divide by 0 error. Please enter a non-zero value for operand 2. Now, what happens if I do something weird? What does this do? Doesn't do anything. All right. Let's go down to here. Else if, else, how do we throw our own errors? Let's see. Let's see. How do we throw our own? throw. All right. So how about if I do this? Throw new exception class method. I've never actually tried this before. Throw new exception class. Throw a new exception class message. Is that how that works? Exception class. I don't know if this is right. I don't think I'm doing this right. I'm just trying to wing it here. See, let me. So exception monthly. Investment must be greater than 0. Throw a new exception monthly 0. Throw a new exception. No, this was stupid. That thing. Invalid operator. All right, I'm going to start this and see what this does. Okay, 50 equals 50. Okay, so here's an exception, something I defined. It's called invalid operator. This is where it happened. So invalid operator, is that the type? Okay. Let me, let's see, EX, message stack trace, does get type 2, okay, the last one is, oh, that's what it says across the top. Okay, let me run this again, I want to see what it says across the top. 50 equals 50. It says, oh, system exception. Okay, so yeah, so this is how you handle it. And then the message is that. Okay, and it showed the stack trace. Okay, so it showed the message, showed the stack trace, and up at the top it said system exception. All right, so that's pretty much how you do it. Let's see, let me take a look at the assignment again. So what I've shown you today is what's going to be like the next assignment, which is if I go to resources, let's see, I had that up. This, it's going to be this. So I will post it up in the assignments section, and basically this is all that you need to do, what I've just shown you. All right, so are there any questions? Oh, it's nice to see all you people here today. All right, great. So I will. So I think. Rain, do you have any questions? Is there a chat around here? How does this work? I hope I'm not. No, I'm not. Okay. All right. So anyway, so that's pretty good for today. None so far. Great. Yeah. Okay. Now I see. Okay. So I'm gonna close this up, and we will continue next on Thursday and cover data validation. Very similar to this, but it's a little bit different. So if there are no more questions, okay, very good. I'm going to sign off here. All right, thanks for watching.